Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll hear the story of a woman whose single act of mercy toward a homeless man ended up tearing down her perfect but entirely fake life. Enjoy the video. I thought I was doing a good thing, that God was watching me and smiling, that this was my chance to atone for at least one of the dirty deals that built my husband's fortune. I took a homeless person home with me, into my guest bedroom, and when I quietly looked in the next morning to wake this poor man and give him money for a bus ticket out of town, my feet froze to the hardwood floor. The bed was empty, but the sheet was not. On it, neatly folded, lay my nightgown, the one I had slept in, and on the nightstand, a printed sheet of paper. My photograph, taken last night with a smartphone, from arm's length. I looked at that image and didn't recognize myself, not because I looked different, but because the woman in the picture was sleeping, trustingly, vulnerably, mouth open, hair a mess, and I will never sleep peacefully again, because the man I let in wasn't homeless, he was a hunter, and I was prey that had led the wolf straight into her den. I stood in the middle of the guest bedroom, gripping that piece of paper, unable to breathe. The edges were uneven. He had torn it from a notepad on my husband's desk. In the corner of the photo, there was a gray strip where the glossy paper ended and the blank margin began. He had gone into the study. He had turned on the computer. He had figured out the printer. He had printed. While I slept in my bedroom down the hall, this man sat at my husband's desk, fiddled with the equipment, and smiled. I felt bile rise to my throat, not from fear, from humiliation. My house, my technology, my bedroom, my body, all of it had become his tool, and I hadn't even woken up. But let me start at the beginning. It all began very differently. 3 weeks before I found that photograph, I was just Alice Marie Reynolds, 38 years old, wife of a billionaire, living in a mansion in Beverly Hills, drinking espresso every morning from a $300 limited edition cup and staring at my life through a glass wall. Beautiful, expensive, but utterly empty, like a storefront in a closed department store. Everything in place, everything gleaming, but you can't go in, and you can't buy anything because everything has already been bought by someone else for someone else's purposes. My morning started at 10. I didn't need an alarm. I woke up on my own because my body had grown accustomed to silence. Not peace, silence. They are different things. The house had 23 rooms, but almost no sound. My husband, Jonathan, left for work at 7. I heard the heavy front door close, the growl of his armored Mercedes, the crunch of gravel under the tires. Then silence. The kids were at a boarding school in Switzerland. I video called them every 3 days. They answered briefly, politely, like strangers. The staff moved soundlessly like shadows. I had specifically asked the agency manager to hire people who didn't stomp, clatter dishes, or talk loudly. Now they glided through the house like ghosts. Sometimes I felt like a ghost too, bodiless, silent, useless. I came downstairs at 10 sharp. The housekeeper, Maria, already had my cup waiting. Espresso, double, no sugar. She knew. She always knew. She knew I didn't eat breakfast, didn't watch TV, didn't open the living room curtains until noon because morning light hurt my eyes. She knew everything, except one thing, why I was still here, why I hadn't left, why I hadn't run away. Because I didn't know the answer myself. I looked out the window. Beyond it was perfect landscaping, a lawn trimmed to a razor's edge, a fountain that turned on at exactly 8, cypress trees planted in a dead straight line. I knew every blade of grass, every stone, every branch. I knew them, but I didn't feel them. It felt like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. Luxurious, successful, correct. But I wasn't the main character in that movie. I was the set decoration, the wife, an accessory to the fortune, a brooch on a lapel. Beautiful, expensive, but the jacket would button up just fine without it. Jonathan married me 10 years ago. I was young, pretty, ambitious, a journalist at a business publication, interviewing him for a profile. He said, "You're smart, that's the main thing. Pretty girls are a dime a dozen, smart ones are rare." I thought it was a compliment. Now I know it was an asset valuation. He bought me the way he bought factories and mansions. Not with money, with status, with attention, with the fact that I was one of them in his circle. A journalist wife sounds good, a beautiful wife sounds even better. But there was never any love. There was convenience. It was convenient for him to live with me. I didn't make scenes, didn't demand things, didn't cheat, didn't drink, didn't do drugs, didn't bring lovers into the house. I just existed, in a glass jar, on a golden shelf, under a bell jar, like cheese in the refrigerator, so it wouldn't dry out, but also so it wouldn't run away.
I wasn't unhappy. Unhappiness is when you feel bad and you know why. I felt nothing. Empty, as if someone had pulled out the rod that held everything together, desires, dreams, fears. Only the shell remained, beautiful, well-maintained, expensive, and utterly hollow. That evening was like any other. Jonathan had flown to London for negotiations. I didn't even ask with whom. The kids were at boarding school. I had given the staff the night off. I wanted to be alone. Not because I liked solitude, I hated it, but sometimes the company of my own melancholy was preferable to the company of living people who looked at me with polite curiosity, like an exhibit in a museum. I sat in the kitchen, drank wine, white, dry, Chablis, 2 glasses, and stared at the wall. On the wall hung a painting, expensive, contemporary, abstract, red and black strokes on a white background, that Jonathan had paid $200,000 for at some London auction. I hated it. It reminded me of blood on snow, but Jonathan bought it, so it hung there. In this house, everything hung, stood, and lay not because anyone liked it, but because it was expensive and Jonathan bought it. Around 11, I decided to take out the trash. Funny, right? The wife of a billionaire hauling a bag to the dumpster. But I wanted to get out of that crypt, even for 5 minutes, even to breathe air that didn't smell of money and floral diffusers, but of dampness, gasoline, and rotting leaves. I threw on a coat, cashmere, beige, bought in Milan, worn twice in 2 years, grabbed the bag of kitchen scraps, and walked out. The dumpster area was about 100 yards from the house, behind a hedge of cypress trees. I walked along the gravel path, listening to the stones crunch under the soles of my suede loafers, and thought about how my life was a gravel path, beautiful, well-maintained, expensive, but no one walked on it, just me, and the staff, and occasionally Jonathan, when he needed to get from the house to the garage. I was about to toss the bag into the dumpster when I heard a rustling. At first, I thought it was a dog, or a cat, or a rat. We had rats here, fat, brazen ones that the pest control service poisoned once a month, but they always came back. The sound came from behind the bins, from the darkness where old cardboard boxes stood, a broken garden chair, and a rusty bicycle with no wheels. I froze. The rustling came again, and then I saw him. A man, about 40, dirty, in a torn olive-green jacket, with stubble that had become a beard, and eyes, not cloudy, not drunk, not frightened, clear, gray-blue, almost transparent. He was crouched behind the dumpster, looking at me, not begging, not pleading, not hiding his gaze, just looking. The way a person looks when they expect nothing more from life, but aren't afraid of it either. "Who are you?" I asked. "A person," he answered. His voice was low, raspy, strained, but not broken, like he'd been screaming recently or hadn't spoken in a long time, or both. "What are you doing here?" "Living," he said, nodding at the cardboard box. "Right here, 2nd week. Quiet," he smirked.
Neighbors don't complain. I looked at his hands. They were dirty, scraped, with broken nails, with calluses on the palms. But his fingers, long, thin, with what had once been well-maintained cuticles, those weren't the hands of someone born in a dumpster. Those were the hands of a pianist, or a surgeon, or an architect, or someone who once held a drafting pencil and now held an empty bottle of cheap port. Something clicked inside me. Not pity, no, I had burned pity out of myself long ago, living with Jonathan and watching him destroy companies, fire thousands of people, and sleep soundly. Something else. Recognition. I looked at this dirty, lost, ragged man and saw myself, just as lost, only he had lost everything, while I had never had anything. Because having isn't about owning, it's about feeling. And I felt nothing. "Are you hungry?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just kept looking at me with those transparent eyes. There was no hope in them, no gratitude, no humiliation, only weary curiosity, as if I weren't a person, but a painting in a gallery. He was looking, but he didn't believe the painting was real. "Wait here," I said, and walked back to the house. I went into the kitchen, took food from the refrigerator, soup in a container, chicken breast, bread, cheese, 2 apples, a bottle of water, and put it all in a bag. Then I thought for a moment and added a pack of cigarettes. I didn't know if he smoked, but homeless men often did, or at least they traded cigarettes for food. Then I took Jonathan's old coat from the closet, dark blue, cashmere, which he hadn't worn in 3 years because he'd bought himself a new one, and hung it over my shoulder. I walked back out. He was still sitting in the same spot. He hadn't left. I set the bag next to him and put the coat on top.
"Here, take this. The coat is warm. My husband doesn't need it." He looked at the bag, then at the coat, then at me, and suddenly he smiled. The smile was crooked, unpracticed, as if he'd forgotten how to do it, as if his facial muscles had forgotten that motion. But there was something real in it, not a perfunctory thank you, not feigned gratitude, not the practiced smile of a panhandler he had honed over the years, but surprise, like a child who has seen a miracle and can't believe the miracle is for him. "Thank you," he said. "You're kind." "I'm not kind," I answered. "I'm just tired of being indifferent." I turned and walked away. Didn't look back, didn't check if he was eating, if he'd put on the coat, if he was cold. I just left. Because if I had stayed, I would have started a conversation. And if I had started a conversation, I would have learned his story. And if I had learned his story, I wouldn't have been able to leave. I would have brought him into the house. I would have done what I did 3 weeks later. I would have opened the door to the wolf. I didn't sleep all night. I lay in my enormous bed, 8 by 8 feet, Italian silk, goose-down pillows that cost as much as a nurse's monthly salary, and stared at the ceiling. The ceiling had crown molding, antique, hand-carved, little cherubs, garlands, rosettes. I hated it as much as I hated the painting. But now, looking at the molding, I didn't see it. I saw that man's eyes, transparent, like mountain spring water. There was no anger in them, no despair, no plea, only emptiness. The same emptiness that was in my soul, just as deep, just as hopeless. The next morning, I went back to the dumpster. He was there. I brought him hot soup in a thermos, minestrone that Maria had made yesterday, and clean socks. He thanked me. We started talking. His name was Eli. Once, a very long time ago, it felt like a past life to him, he had been an architect, not a run-of-the-mill one who drew standard apartment blocks, a real one, with a name, a studio, students. He designed houses, not like mine, not palaces with columns and molding, but beautiful, cozy houses with soul. He said every house should have a window that looks out at the sky. People forget about the sky, he said, staring up at the gray October overcast. They build walls to hide, but you should build windows to see that the world is big, that there's something beyond their problems, beyond their money, beyond their crap. He had a studio in downtown Los Angeles, in an old building near Pershing Square, with high ceilings and enormous windows. Commissions, regular clients, students who later opened their own firms. He was happy. Not rich. Architects in LA are rarely rich unless they're designing shopping malls for billionaires, but happy. Then the recession hit. Commissions were canceled one by one. Clients left for competitors who worked faster and cheaper because they didn't bother with windows to the sky. He went into debt, first small amounts to pay rent, for materials, for electricity, then bigger, bank loans at insane interest rates, then critical, debts to collectors who called every day, threatened, came to the studio, broke furniture, hauled away equipment. His wife couldn't take it. She left, took their daughter, said, "You're worthless. You can't provide for your family. You sit in your studio drawing little houses while normal people make money." She was right. He didn't know how to make money. He knew how to create, and they are different things. Creating is art. Making money is business. Art always loses to business, especially in this country. He started drinking. Not all at once, gradually. First a glass of wine with dinner to relieve stress, then a bottle to forget, then anything with a high alcohol content. He lost the studio, the landlord evicted him for non-payment, lost the apartment, the bank foreclosed, lost his friends. They got tired of trying to save him, everyone had their own problems. Lost himself, ended up on the street. First, he slept at acquaintances' places, at train stations, in doorways. Then he moved to the dumpster, because at the dumpster, no one chased him away. At the dumpster, he could be no one, and that, he said, was almost a relief. When you're no one, you have no obligations, no fear of loss, because there's nothing left to lose. "I haven't drunk in 3 weeks," he said, when I came to see him for the 4th time. "I realized I'd die that way, and I don't want to die. I want to see my daughter one more time." "Where is she?" I asked. "I don't know exactly. My ex took her. They say to San Francisco or Sacramento or maybe Portland. I tried to find her, but," he spread his hands, "in my condition, they won't even let me into a building. And if they do, they call the cops right away. There's a homeless guy here. Come get him." I listened to him and felt something shift inside me. Not pity, not sympathy, something more dangerous, a desire to help. Not with money. I could throw money around like candy, but I knew money didn't save anyone. I had seen Jonathan. He had billions. He was more miserable than Eli. Because at least Eli had a goal, to find his daughter. Jonathan only had the next deal, an endless race with no finish line. What saves you isn't gold. What saves you is faith. Faith that you still matter to someone. And Eli had lost that faith. In himself, in people, in the possibility that his life could change. I visited him every day, brought food, warm clothes, books. He loved to read, thrillers, science fiction, sometimes classics if I brought them. One day I found him reading Crime and Punishment. He was sitting on a cardboard box wrapped in Jonathan's coat, reading by the light of a street lamp. I asked, "Why?" He answered, "To remember that I'm still human. People read, animals don't." We talked a lot about life, death, love, betrayal. About why smart women marry rich idiots, about why talented men drink themselves to death in dumpsters, about how there is no justice, and about how, even if there isn't, you can't stop being human, because if you stop, you become the same kind of shit as the people who destroyed you. One evening, on the 9th day of our acquaintance, it started to rain. Not just rain, a downpour, with wind, with thunder, with lightning that lit up the sky in white flashes. I sat in the living room, drinking wine, watching the windows. The glass rattled in their frames. Beyond the hedge, at the dumpster, under a cardboard box, sat a man, wet, cold, alone. I looked at the clock. 11, 11:30. 12, 1 in the morning, 2. The rain didn't stop. At 2:30, I couldn't take it anymore. I threw on a raincoat, grabbed an umbrella, big, black men's, and walked to the dumpster. He was sitting in the same place, hunched over, under a box that was already soaked through and sagging under the weight of the water. Jonathan's coat was wet. He was shivering. "Eli," I said, "come inside." He looked up at me. His eyes were transparent, wet like everything around him. "Don't, Alice. I don't want to cause you trouble." "There won't be any trouble. The staff is off. My husband is in London. The kids are in Switzerland. I'm alone." "What if he finds out?" "He won't." "What if I do something wrong, steal something, break something?" "You won't," I said. "I trust you."
He looked at me for a long moment, then slowly got to his feet. His knees cracked. He was cold and stiff. I reached out my hand. He took it. His palm was icy, rough, but his fingers, those long, thin fingers, held mine gently, as if afraid of breaking them. We walked to the house. I unlocked the door with my key and let him in. He stopped in the foyer and froze. I watched his reaction. He didn't gawk at the Murano glass chandeliers, didn't touch the Carrara marble floors, didn't gasp at the staircase with its wrought iron railings. He just stood there and looked at the ceiling, at the molding, the work of Francesco Bartolini, Italian school, late 90s. "Francesco Bartolini," he said quietly. "I know his students. They worked in San Francisco in the early 2000s. "How do you know that?" "I studied in Italy, on scholarship, 3 years in Florence." He turned to me. "You know what the irony is? I designed houses for people who ended up in dumpsters, and now I'm in a dumpster myself. And the house I designed for myself, I never built it. I didn't have time." I led him to the guest bedroom on the 2nd floor. The room was large, with a fireplace, a view of the garden, a 4-poster bed. I put fresh sheets on, linen, Italian, smelling of lavender, laid out a towel, set a glass of water and a bottle of sparkling water on the nightstand. "Bathroom to the right," I said. "Towels in the closet. If you need anything, I'm at the end of the hall, 3rd door on the left." "Alice," he stopped me when I had my hand on the doorknob. "Why are you doing this? I don't know you. I could be anyone." "I know," I said, without turning around. "I saw your eyes. There's no evil in them, only pain, and I know how to recognize pain. I have plenty of it myself." "Thank you," he said quietly. "You're different, not like them." "I'm like me," I answered, and left. I didn't lock my bedroom door, didn't put a chair under the knob, didn't hide a knife under my pillow. I got into bed, turned off the light, and closed my eyes, and I fell asleep almost immediately, for the first time in months without sleeping pills. I dreamed of a house, not mine, but the one he had designed, with a window that looked out at the sky. I stood at that window and watched the clouds. They were white and fluffy, like sheep, and I was smiling. I woke at 7 in the morning, not from an alarm, from the light. Sun, a rare miracle for October, flooded the bedroom in a golden glow. I smiled. Then I remembered Eli, and the smile vanished. I sat up in bed and listened. The house was quiet, too quiet. I got up, threw on my robe, silk, ivory-colored, a birthday gift from Jonathan that he hadn't even chosen himself, just told his assistant, "Buy something sexy," and walked quietly down the hall. The door to the guest bedroom was slightly open. I looked inside. The bed was empty, but the sheet was not. On it, neatly folded, lay my nightgown, the one I had slept in, and on the nightstand, a printed sheet of paper. My photograph. I picked up the picture with shaking hands. In it, I was sleeping, disheveled, mouth open, with tiny wrinkles around my eyes that I carefully concealed during the day under foundation. Beside me, the bed was empty, but there was an indentation in the pillow, someone else's. Someone had sat on my bed. Someone had watched me. Someone had taken that picture, from arm's length. The edges of the paper were uneven. He had torn it from a notepad on my husband's desk. In the corner of the photo, there was a gray strip where the glossy paper ended and the blank margin began. I sank onto the edge of the bed. My legs turned to cotton. My heart pounded somewhere in my throat. My ears rang so loudly that I couldn't hear my own breathing. He had gone into the study. He had turned on the computer. He had figured out the printer. He had printed. While I slept in my bedroom down the hall, this man sat at my husband's desk, fiddled with the equipment, and smiled. I felt bile rise to my throat, not from fear, but from humiliation. My house, my technology, my bedroom, my body, all of it had become his tool, and I hadn't even woken up. I didn't call the police, not because I wasn't afraid, but because I knew the police would come, take a report, and leave. And then Jonathan's head of security would arrive, a young man named Victor with sharp eyes and a habit of asking questions it was better not to answer. He would interrogate the staff, check the cameras. I had deliberately turned them off for the night because I didn't want anyone to see me bringing a homeless man into the house. I thought I was doing a good deed in secret. It turned out I was just covering my tracks. Would I cover them well enough that Victor wouldn't find anything? I didn't know, and I was afraid to check. I searched the study. The printer was warm. There was one clean sheet left in the tray. He had printed only one photograph. On the desk lay Jonathan's notepad with business notes. Had Eli looked through it? Copied it? I didn't know. I checked the computer. The browser history had been cleared. He knew what he was doing. He wasn't an ordinary homeless man. He was smart, and that scared me more than anything.
I didn't go looking for him. I decided he had left for good, that the photograph was a farewell gesture. Sick, frightening, but final. I was wrong. 3 days later, I went back to the dumpster, not because I needed to take out the trash. I just wanted to make sure he wasn't there. He was, sitting in the same spot, wearing the same coat, dirty, unshaven, red-eyed, but clean. I had given him soap, and he had washed in the guest bathroom before he left. "You came," he said. "You left a photograph," I said. "Why?" "So you wouldn't forget." "Forget what?" "That you're not alone. That someone saw the real you. Not the billionaire's wife, not the silk doll, not the museum exhibit, but a living woman, tired, lonely, beautiful. You scared me." "You weren't scared. You came back." He was right. I hadn't been scared. I had come back, because for the first time in 10 years, someone had seen me. Not my money, not my status, not my last name, not my body that Jonathan used like an expensive call girl, but me, sleeping, vulnerable, real, with my mouth open and wrinkles around my eyes. "What do you want?" I asked. "Your help." "What kind?" "I found my daughter. She's in San Francisco, for sure. My ex sent a letter, through Facebook, can you believe it? After 5 years. She says she misses me, that my daughter asks about her father, that I can come, but I need to get there. A ticket, money for the trip, and decent clothes. The way I am now, they won't even let me on a Greyhound." "And the photograph?" He was silent for a moment. Then he pulled out an old, cracked phone from his pocket, screen spider-webbed, case held together with duct tape. "I'll delete them," he said. "All of them. There are 3. I took 3. One of you in bed, one of you sleeping on your side, one close-up. I haven't posted them. I haven't shown them to anyone. I just wanted, I don't know, to leave a trace. Proof that this was real." "What was real?" "Your kindness." He looked me in the eyes. "I haven't encountered kindness like that in 10 years, not since my wife left. I forgot what it felt like for someone to care about you for no reason, not for money, not for gain, just because you're a person. You gave me that feeling, even if I didn't deserve it." I looked at him. There was no lie in his eyes, no cunning, no calculation, but the truth.
The truth of a man who had hit rock bottom and was trying to climb back out, even if clumsily, even with mistakes, even by frightening the only person who believed in him. "Delete them," I said.
He pressed a few buttons, showed me the screen. 3 files deleted, trash emptied. "Done," he said. "They're gone. No one will see them. I promise." I took an envelope from my pocket. $500, not thousands, hundreds. I had prepared it yesterday, before I decided to come. I suppose I knew he would be here. I suppose I knew I would say yes. I suppose I wanted him to leave, to disappear, so I could forget, or not forget. I didn't know. "Here's a ticket to San Francisco," I said. "Greyhound, sorry, I couldn't get a flight. And money, $300. The rest when you get settled. Send me your account number." "Alice!" "Don't." I held out the envelope. "Just go and don't come back." He took the envelope, looked at it, then at me. "I'll pay you back, every penny, I swear." "Don't. Just live. Live well. For your daughter." He nodded, turned, and walked away. I watched him until he disappeared around the corner. Then I sat down on the bench, pulled out my phone, and called Victor, the head of security. I told him that a homeless man had gotten onto the property, that I was frightened, that we needed to increase patrols. He asked if I had called the police. I said no. He said he would handle it himself. I knew he wouldn't handle it, because I hadn't told him the most important thing, that the homeless man had been inside the house, that he had slept in the guest room, that he had photographed me. I couldn't say that, because then I would have to explain why I had let him in, and that explanation would destroy everything, my reputation, my marriage, my life. I chose to be a coward and stay silent, and I hoped he would never come back. A week later, Jonathan flew to Dubai for a construction expo. He said he'd be back in 5 days. The kids were in Switzerland. I gave the staff the weekend off. They had families of their own. I was alone. The alarm was on, the cameras were working, the security patrol made rounds every 2 hours. I was safe, or so I thought. At 2 in the morning, I awoke to a sound. Not a click, a scraping. Someone was fiddling with the lock on the front door. I sat up in bed and listened. Silence. Then the scraping again. I got up, tiptoed to the window, and peeked through the gap in the curtains. There was a figure at the gate. A man, dirty, in a torn jacket, with a huge backpack over his shoulders. He wasn't breaking the lock. He was just trying to open the door with his own key. The key I had given him a week ago when he stayed in the guest room. I had forgotten to take it back. Stupid. I went downstairs, walked to the door. The lock clicked. He opened it. The door swung open. On the threshold stood Eli. But not the Eli I had seen off at the bus station. This one was dirty, reeking, with a black eye, a split lip, hands covered in cement dust. He smelled of sweat, booze, and something sour. He was swaying. He was drunk, or beaten, or both. "Eli," he rasped, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't know where else to go." What happened? I stepped back, but I didn't close the door. Nothing happened. Everything happened. He stepped into the foyer, stopped, leaned against the wall. My daughter didn't want to see me. My ex said if I ever showed up again, she'd file a report. I sat at the station for 3 days, drank. Then some gang jumped me, took my money, beat me, stole my jacket. I walked. 2 weeks, slept wherever I could. I wanted to get to you. You're the only one who ever believed in me. You promised not to come back. I know. I'm garbage. I'm weak. I'm nobody. He slid down the wall onto the floor, covered his face with his hands. Just let me wash up, eat, sleep. One day. Tomorrow I'll leave. Forever, I swear. I looked at him, at his dirty hair, his battered face, his hands, scraped, covered in cement, in someone else's blood. He was pathetic. He was frightening. He was human,
as lost as I was, only he had lost everything completely, and I still had hope, or an illusion. I didn't know. Bathroom is downstairs. Towels in the closet. Clean clothes in the guest room. You'll find them. I'll bring you something to eat. He looked up at me. His transparent eyes were wet, shot with red. You're a fool, he said. No one should forgive you. I'm not forgiving. I'm just tired of being cruel. He went into the bathroom. I heard the water start. He groaned when the hot water hit his bruises. I stood in the kitchen, heating up soup, cutting bread, and thinking about what I was doing. What would Jonathan say if he found out? What would security say? What would the kids say? I didn't know. I didn't care. For the first time in 10 years, I didn't care. He came out an hour later, clean, shaved. I had given him a disposable razor I kept for guests, in fresh clothes. The black eye had turned a purple blue. His split lip was swollen, but his eyes, those transparent, water-like eyes, looked at me with gratitude and pain. He sat down at the table, silently ate 2 bowls of soup, drank a mug of tea, ate a sandwich. Then he looked up.
I didn't go to San Francisco, he said. What? I lied. The money only got me as far as Bakersfield. I got off there, decided I didn't have the right. I'm a homeless drunk. What kind of father am I? I got scared. I'm always scared, always running. Ran from my wife, ran from my debts, ran from myself. And now I ran from my daughter. He gripped his mug so hard his knuckles went white. I'm worthless, Alice. You were wrong to believe in me. I wasn't wrong, I said. You came back. You told the truth. That's not running. That's a step. What step? A step into an abyss? A step toward yourself. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he took my hand. His fingers were hot from the bath. Rough, but gentle. Alice, he said, I don't know what's happening to me. I've never been like this. I used to be strong, confident. I built houses. I led teams. Now I'm afraid of my own shadow, and I'm afraid of you, because you're the only one who sees a human being in me, and I don't know how to be human. I've forgotten. You'll learn. I'll help. I didn't know why I was saying this, probably because for the first time in 10 years, someone needed me not as an ornament, but as a person. And I needed him, not his body, not his money, he had none, but his trust, his truth, his eyes, in which I saw myself, not the billionaire's wife, not the silk doll, but a living woman, tired, lonely, but not broken, not yet. He stayed, this time not in the guest room. I offered him my own bed, not for sex, for warmth. He was cold. He was alone. I was alone. We lay down next to each other, not touching. I listened to his breathing, heavy, irregular, with a slight wheeze. He fell asleep within 5 minutes. I didn't sleep all night. I watched his face, calm, defenseless, handsome even with the black eye, and thought about what I was doing. Me, Alice Reynolds, wife of a billionaire, lying in bed with a homeless man. If anyone found out, I would be destroyed. Not by Jonathan, by society, by the upper crust, by Beverly Hills. But I didn't care. For the first time in 10 years, I felt alive. In the morning, I woke to find him watching me. He was lying on his side, propped on one elbow, staring, not predatorily, not arrogantly, wonderingly, as if I were a miracle he couldn't quite believe in. You're beautiful, he said, when you're asleep, not when you're made up and done up, but when you're plain, tired, real.
You've said that before. I'll say it again, so you remember. You're beautiful, Alice. Not a thing, not an ornament, not an accessory. a person, alive, real. I remembered. Forever. He stayed with me for 3 days. We drank coffee in the mornings, walked in the garden, watched movies at night. I didn't turn on the alarm while he was in the house. I was afraid it would trip and security would come. I turned off the cameras when he was there and turned them back on when he went to his room. I learned to lie. Technically, professionally, without a shred of guilt. I lied to the staff that he was my cousin from out of town, visiting. I lied to the security guards that he was a new landscape designer working in the garden. I lied to Jonathan on the phone that everything was fine, that I missed him, that I was waiting for him to come home. I lied to everyone except Eli. With him, I was honest. On the 3rd day, he said, "I have to go. I can't hide anymore. I don't have the right." "Where?" "Find a job, rent a room, get on my feet, then I'll come back. To you, if you want." "I can't leave Jonathan." "You can. You're just afraid." "I am afraid." "Good. Be afraid, but do it anyway. Fear shouldn't stop you. It should be your fuel." He left that evening. I gave him money, not too much so he wouldn't drink it away, not too little so he could get started. I took back my key, kissed him on the cheek. He hugged me, carefully, as if I were something fragile. "I'll come back," he said. "I promise." "Don't promise. Just live." He left. I stayed. In the mansion, on the golden shelf, with a husband who returned from Dubai and didn't even notice that the house smelled of someone else's tobacco, with staff who pretended they hadn't seen anything, with cameras I had learned to deceive, with myself, new, strange, frightening, someone who finally knew what love was, and what fear was, and that sometimes they were indistinguishable. 2 weeks later, Victor called. His voice was tense, official. "Alice," he said, "we've detected several camera outages in the house over the past 2 weeks. The system flagged them as glitches. Are you aware?" "No," I said. "Probably electrical problems. I haven't touched anything." "Understood. I'll send a technician to check the equipment." "Fine." I hung up. My hands were shaking. I knew the technician would find evidence of deliberate shutdowns, but he couldn't prove I had done it intentionally. I knew Victor suspected, but he couldn't prove anything without my confession. I knew I was playing with fire, but I couldn't stop, because for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't a decoration. I was a player, and the stakes were high. My life. Eli came back a month later, called from an unknown number, said he'd found a construction job, was renting a room in a boarding house, saving money for his own studio, asked if he could visit. I said yes. We met in the city, in a small coffee shop in a part of town where no one knew either of us. He was clean, shaved, almost sober. The black eye was gone. His lip had healed. He looked almost normal, almost happy. "I missed you," he said. "I didn't miss you," I lied. "I just thought about you, all the time." We met once a week, in coffee shops, in parks, in cheap motels where no one asked for ID. I lied to Jonathan that I was seeing a friend, lied to the kids that I had errands, lied to the staff that I was going shopping. I became a professional liar, and I liked it, because the truth was ugly and the lie was beautiful. It gave me hours of happiness, hours when I wasn't a billionaire's wife, but just Alice, a woman who was loved, who loved back. 3 months later, Eli said, "I found documents in your husband's study. The first night I stayed at your house, I was looking through his desk searching for paper to print on, and I found a folder with contracts, with offshore accounts, with numbers that made my head spin. I made copies on my phone. Your husband is a thief, Alice, not just a businessman, a thief. He stole billions. I can prove it." I froze. "Why do you need this?" I asked. "Because he's keeping you in a cage, because he destroys people, because I want you to be free. If you leak those documents, he'll go to prison, and they'll make me an accomplice. I live in his house. I spend his money. I'm his wife. You're not an accomplice. You're a hostage, and you can prove it. if you hand over the documents yourself, if you go to the prosecutor yourself, if you tell them everything you know. I don't know anything. I never got involved in his business. Then you're clean. Then you have nothing to fear. I thought for 3 days. Then I met Eli, took the flash drive with the document copies, hired a lawyer, not mine, not Jonathan's, an independent one from a firm that specialized in economic crimes. The lawyer studied the documents, went pale, and said, "This isn't billions. This is tens of billions. Your husband is one of the biggest embezzlers of the last decade. If you turn this over to the FBI, he'll go away for a long time. But you need to be prepared for them to investigate you too, for your life to be turned inside out, for you to lose everything." "I have nothing," I said, "except my freedom. I want it back." I turned over the documents, through the FBI, through my lawyer, through official channels. Jonathan was arrested 2 weeks later when he returned from another business trip. They took him at LAX right at the gate. I watched the news on TV, saw his face, pale, angry, frightened, and felt nothing. No joy, no relief, no sadness, only emptiness. The same emptiness I had carried for 10 years. But now, in that emptiness, a light appeared, small, weak, but alive. The kids didn't forgive me. They said I had betrayed their father, that I had destroyed the family, that I was a monster. Maybe they were right, maybe not. I don't know. I took them out of boarding school, sent them to my sister in San Diego, said they could stay there while the investigation proceeded, that I didn't want them to see their mother become who she had always been, free. They didn't understand. They were the children of a billionaire. They had grown up in a golden cage and thought it was paradise. I didn't try to convince them otherwise. When they grow up, they'll understand. Or they won't. That will be their choice. I sold the mansion a month after Jonathan's arrest, not because I needed the money. The lawyers had frozen all the accounts, but I had personal savings that Jonathan didn't control, but because I couldn't live there anymore. Every room reminded of him. Every wall reminded me of my slavery. I bought a small apartment downtown with a window that looked out at the sky, the one Eli had talked about. And on the wall, I hung not an abstract painting, but a print of a hopper, morning sun, with a woman sitting on a bed looking out a window at the morning light. I look at it and remember that life can be different, not perfect, not rich, but real. Eli didn't move in with me. We see each other once a week, drink coffee, walk through the city, sometimes stay over at each other's places. He opened a small workshop, not architectural, but woodworking. He makes custom furniture, tables, chairs, cabinets. He says it's his way of building houses, small houses you can walk into and feel like a human being. I visit him, watch him plane boards, smell the wood and varnish, and feel almost happy. Jonathan is in federal custody now, awaiting trial. He faces up to 15 years. I don't plan to visit him, not because I'm angry, the anger has passed, but because I have nothing to say to him. Our story is over. Not tragically, not beautifully, just over. Like a movie that stopped in the middle. No one applauds, no one cries, everyone just goes home. I drink coffee from a mug with a little house painted on it, a crack on the rim, and I look out the window. The sky is gray today, October-like, low, but somewhere behind the clouds there's sun. I can't see it, but I know it's there, like the life I want to build, with a window, with a view of the sky, and with a man who looks at me not as a thing, but as a miracle, even if that miracle is just a tired woman with messy hair and tiny wrinkles around her eyes. Real, alive, finally free. The photograph, the first one, of me sleeping with my mouth open, lies in my desk drawer, under a stack of old letters and faded receipts. Sometimes I take it out, look at it, and remember. Not him, myself. The one who was sleeping, trustingly, vulnerably. The one who believed that good conquers evil. Now I know that good doesn't conquer anything. It just gives you the strength not to give up. And that's enough. The mug with the little house sat on the windowsill. I picked it up and took a sip. The coffee was bitter, but I smiled, because bitterness is honest, and sweetness was a lie. And now I know the difference. Real life, it's bitter. But in that bitterness, there's flavor, the flavor of freedom, which I waited 10 years for and finally tasted.